Hello friends, this is Dr. Hemchand Kothari. I welcome you all in my YouTube channel eResearch Academy. Friends, in this lecture we are going to discuss non-probability sampling techniques. So let's start. So we have four types of non-probability sampling techniques. These are convenience sampling, judgment or purposive sampling, quota sampling and snowball sampling. So let's start with the first one, that is the convenience sampling. Okay, so as name suggests, convenience sampling is a sampling techniques that follows a very convenient way to collect the sample from the population. Okay, it is a non-probability sampling where a researcher draws the sample from the population which are very close to him and easy to draw or collect, right? So that is why it is known as the convenient sampling or convenience sampling. So convenience sampling is also known as grab sampling, opportunity sampling and accidental sampling. So this is also to keep in your mind that this is also known as the grab sampling, opportunity sampling and accidental sampling. Okay, sometime it is asked in question examination as a MCQs or multiple type questions, option question, right? So if we try to understand with the help of an example here, so let us say this one is our researcher, the red one, okay, and he want to select the sample from the population, and this one is our population. This entire is our population of the universe. Okay, so under the convenience sampling, what the researcher do? So he or she try to pick the sample which are very near to him. Okay, let us say this one, this one, this one, this one and this one. Okay, so as per his need, he select the sample from his nearby. Okay, so he generally avoid the samples from the far one. Okay, like this one, this one, this one, this one and this one. Okay, so by this way he select the sample from the universe or the population. Okay, so if you talk about the merits and demerits or advantages or disadvantages of this technique, so under the advantages wala part, so it is very easy to collect data under the convenience sampling. It saves time, money and efforts and useful in the pilot survey, right? So if we talk about the disadvantages, it is there is high possibility of biasness from the researcher side and high possibility of sampling error, and the outcome of this research cannot be generalized for a whole or in a wider range or wider areas. Okay, so it can only be helpful for the narrower or a you can say a local area or a smaller area, right? So next one, we have the next method, that is purposive sampling. Okay, so we have next non-probability sampling, that is the purposive sampling. It is another type of non-probability sampling where the researcher draws the sample from the population as per his personal judgment, experience and expertise. Okay, so in purposive sampling, researcher apply his experience, knowledge, expertise, judgments, etc. while drawing the sample from the population. Therefore, it is also known as the judgment sampling, right? So as the name suggests, judgment sampling here means researcher uses its own judgment while picking or selecting the sample from the universe, right? Okay, so this is again the graphical presentation here. Okay, so let us say this one is our population. Okay, and this population is presented by different colors here. Okay, and what the researcher is doing, he is only picking the sample which are denoted as red here. Okay, so wherever the reds are, so he is picking all reds, this one. Okay, so as per his own judgment, he is believing that these red one will be beneficial for carrying his research work or completing his study, right? Okay, if we talk about the advantages and disadvantages of this technique, so we have the first advantage is as it is easy to collect data under the judgment or purposive sampling. Okay, so data is easily available, right? Then next, it saves time, money and efforts of the researcher, and also avoid the irrelevant data in the sample. Okay, if we talk about the disadvantages, so manipulation from the participant side is possible under this sampling technique, and it is not applicable when sample size is large, so we can't use this technique. And last disadvantage is that the biasness is always present here under this technique. Okay, next one. Okay, so next we have quota sampling. The quota sampling is another non-probability sampling in which entire population is divided into some groups or strata on the basis of some specific characteristics or attribute of the respondent. Right? So sample from these groups are then taken on the basis of the population proportion. So that is why this technique is quite reliable, as it is true representation of the entire population under this technique, because the samples are on the proportion of the population, right? Okay, so quota sampling is basically contains three steps. The first, it divides the entire population into smaller groups or a strata, and then determine the population proportion of these groups, and finally select the sample required from each group, right? So these are the three steps generally taken while the quota sampling. Okay, if we talk about the advantages and disadvantages, so it is convenient to the researcher to carry out the quota sampling. It saves time, money and efforts, and high level of accuracy is attained in quota sampling. Okay, if we talk about the disadvantages, so chance to leave any relevant quota in sample is quite possible here under this sampling technique, and as it is the non-probability sampling, so it is impossible to find the sampling error under the quota sampling, right? Okay, next we have snowball sampling. Snowball sampling is another or last non-probability sampling technique used to draw a sample from the population which is hard to find due to their rare attribute or a trait. Okay, so it is sampling technique where first known or identified sample recruits other for the study. So this is the advantages of this technique as well, because we don't have the enough idea about the respondent or participant of our study. So anyhow we have to track the first one, and this first known person further recruits the other persons or the participants in our study, right? And it is known as snowball sampling because practically when we roll a ball on a snow field or snow covered surface, the ball becomes larger and larger as it adheres snow on it, right? So it is graphically presented here. You just have it, this one. Okay, if we roll the ball on a snow field, it is becoming larger and larger. Okay, so this one. So that is why this technique is known as snowball technique, right? So this one. Okay, so how the samples are gathered or drawn or collected under the snowball sampling. So we have another graphical presentation here. Let us suppose first we tracked the first person, then he might refer either one or a two person, and we approach to another these two person, then these two further refers to the another two one, okay, and they another further referral to another one, okay. By this way, so we we have a chain here, okay, and if we go on in this process, we have this much of sample for our study, okay. If you talk about the advantages and disadvantages of this sampling, so there are certain advantages, like only techniques in some specific cases where this this technique is applicable. Okay, so due to the properties of the snowball sampling, it is also known as referral sampling, chain sampling, chain referral sampling, and cold sampling or cold calling, sorry. Okay, so these are the further names of the snowball sampling. Again, it is important from examination point of view. Okay, you please just note it down. Snowball sampling is also known as referral sampling, chain sampling, and referral chain referral sampling and cold calling, right? Okay. So if we talk about the advantages and disadvantages of this technique, so under the advantages, it is only the technique in some specific cases where other techniques are fail, okay, and this saves time, money, and effort because one person tells about the other and other and other. So by this way, it becomes means easy to approach the respondent or the participant of our study. And if we talk about the disadvantages, so generally it is observed that the participant do not cooperate in this kind of study or sampling because they have a specific trait or characteristics. So generally they want to just hide themselves from the society, or they don't want to just bring themselves in front of the other people, okay. And then sampling biasness is generally uh, evident there. So these are the disadvantages of the snowball sampling. So friend, these four techniques are there under the non-probability sampling, and these are the merits and demerits of this sampling. You just please go through it, and thank you for watching this video. Have a nice day. God bless you.